12 hours ago, I finally walked through my front door after working an exhausting double shift at the restaurant. My body was completely broken, my feet were aching, and all I wanted was to crawl into bed. But the moment I turned the handle and pushed open our bedroom door, my heart stopped. The space felt strangely empty, cold, and quiet, like a room in a house that nobody had lived in for years. I blinked several times, thinking my tired eyes were playing tricks on me in the dim lighting. But when I flipped on the light switch, the horrific reality hit me instantly. My entire side of the walk-in closet was completely bare. My dresser drawers were pulled open and stripped clean. Even my personal items in the bathroom vanity had completely vanished without a trace, as if I had never existed there. Panic surged through my veins as I sprinted back into the living room, convinced that someone had broken into our apartment. But my boyfriend Mason was just sitting peacefully on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, holding a controller, and playing video games. There was no chaos, no broken lock, and no sign of a break-in. He didn't even look up at me when I stood there, shaking and gasping for breath. I pointed with a trembling hand toward the hallway and asked him where all of my belongings were. Mason slowly paused his video game, leaned back on the cushion, and looked at me with a completely indifferent expression. He calmly stated that he had spent the afternoon clearing out unnecessary clutter and had loaded everything into bags to donate to Goodwill, claiming the extra stuff was giving him severe anxiety. I stood frozen in absolute disbelief, struggling to process the absurd words coming out of his mouth. He had thrown away 2 years of my personal life without ever asking for my permission. He gave away my late grandmother's handmade knitted sweater, my personal laptop that I used for work, and every single journal I had written since I was 12 years old, containing memories I could never replace. When tears streamed down my face and I collapsed onto the floor, Mason didn't show a single drop of empathy. Instead of apologizing, his face hardened and he got extremely irritated with me. He rolled his eyes and accused me of being shallow, materialistic, and ungrateful. He insisted he was doing me a favor by teaching me how to live a minimalist lifestyle, telling me to stop acting so dramatic over useless junk. But those items were not useless junk. They were precious memories and essential tools that I had earned through grueling shifts. I paid for half of this apartment and contributed to every single bill. Yet he acted as though I was just a guest living in his private space. He went back to playing his game, leaving me sitting on a bare blanket on the floor, weeping silently in the dark until midnight. Early the next morning, while Mason was still fast asleep, I began searching the apartment for any remaining clue of what had actually happened. That was when I noticed his heavy leather gym bag tucked away in the back corner of the laundry room. I unzipped it with shaking hands, expecting to find dirty gym clothes. But what I saw inside completely flipped my entire world upside down. Tucked at the bottom of his bag were my daily prescribed medications and my personal passport, completely intact. He hadn't just carelessly donated my things to a thrift store, like he had claimed the night before. He had deliberately hidden my most vital medical supplies and legal documents from me, proving that his actions weren't about minimalism or anxiety at all, but about total power and control. A chill ran down my spine as the horrifying reality set in. This wasn't a reckless mistake by a clumsy boyfriend. This was a calculated move to break my spirit and isolate me. I carefully put the medications back in the bag, pulled out my smartphone, and quietly began photographing every single empty closet, the hidden items, and the bare drawers to ensure I had clear evidence before he woke up. I immediately logged into my bank account and created a private digital folder stored safely in a cloud drive. I uploaded digital receipts from my laptop, bank statements proving I transferred rent money every month, and old photos showing the items stored in the room. If Mason wanted to play a dangerous game of psychological control, I was going to make sure I had cold, hard proof to protect myself. Around 8 in the morning, I stepped outside onto the balcony to make a confidential call to a legal aid hotline. The legal representative listened carefully to my situation and explained something crucial. Since I paid half the rent and my belongings were taken without consent, disposing of or hiding my property was legally classified as domestic theft and intentional destruction of property. Armed with this vital knowledge, I reached out to my Aunt Sarah, who lives in a quiet suburban neighborhood about 6 hours away. The moment I explained the nightmare I was living through, she told me to grab whatever I could and come straight to her home. She promised to leave her guest room ready for me and reminded me that I was far stronger than Mason was trying to make me feel. When Mason finally strolled into the kitchen to make coffee, he acted as if nothing unusual had happened. He gave me a patronizing smile and asked if I was feeling more reasonable today. I kept my voice completely flat and neutral, nodding quietly without arguing. I knew that keeping him unsuspecting and calm was the safest way for me to execute my exit plan, without any sudden escalation. Around noon, Mason announced that he was heading out to meet his friends at a sports bar. The rest of the afternoon, the second his car pulled out of the driveway, I mobilized. I didn't have many clothes left, but I packed my legal documents, car keys, work uniforms, and essential chargers into a small duffel bag. Then, I picked up the phone and dialed the local police department dispatcher. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived at the apartment complex to inspect the scene. I walked them through the rooms, showed them the empty closets, and presented the photos of my hidden medication inside Mason's gym bag. I also provided bank statements showing my continuous financial contributions to the lease, establishing that I was a lawful legal tenant being targeted. The officers took detailed notes and officially filed a report for grand theft and unlawful destruction of personal property. They informed me that because my laptop and specialized equipment had a high monetary value, this was no longer just a minor domestic dispute. It was now a formal criminal investigation that would carry serious legal consequences for anyone involved. While the officers were finalizing the paperwork, I contacted the property manager of our building. I showed her the official police report and requested an emergency lease termination. Under the Tenant Protection Act, understanding the severity of the situation, she agreed to remove my name from the lease agreement immediately, leaving Mason solely responsible for the entire expensive rent. Just as the police officers were walking toward their patrol car in the parking lot, Mason's vehicle pulled up. He stepped out of his car with a cocky grin, expecting a quiet afternoon. But his face turned pale white when he saw 2 uniformed officers standing near our doorway. His arrogant posture instantly vanished, replaced by an expression of pure, unadulterated panic. Mason hurried over, stammering and trying to laugh off the situation as a simple misunderstanding between a couple. But the lead officer held up his hand and sternly told him to step back. The officer informed him that a formal criminal complaint had been registered regarding stolen property, hidden prescription medication, and property destruction, leaving Mason completely speechless and stunned. Mason desperately tried to play the victim, claiming that as the primary lead, he had the authority to clean his own apartment however he wanted. However, the officer firmly corrected him, pointing out that seizing another person's legal property and hiding vital medical supplies is a serious offense, regardless of whose name appears first on the rental agreement contract. Seeing that his charm wasn't working on the law enforcement officers, Mason turned his anger toward me. He raised his voice, shouting that I was ruining his reputation and blowing a tiny household cleaning argument completely out of proportion. But seeing his true toxic nature exposed in front of authority figures only confirmed that making this decisive move was the absolute right choice. The officers issued Mason a formal legal summons to appear in court and warned him not to attempt any contact with me while the investigation remained active. Meanwhile, I loaded my duffel bag into the trunk of my sedan, turned my back on the apartment complex, and drove away without looking back in the rearview mirror even once as Mason watched from the curb. 3 hours into my long highway drive toward Aunt Sarah's house, my phone started vibrating incessantly with incoming notifications. It was a mutual friend calling to ask why. Mason was frantically texting everyone in our group, claiming that I had abandoned him with the entire rent payment and brought fake police officers to his apartment to intimidate him. Mason was attempting to spin the narrative online before the truth leaked out, trying to make me look like the unhinged ex-girlfriend. But I was already 2 steps ahead of him. Instead of engaging in a messy social media fight, I simply sent a digital copy of the official police report and property receipts directly to our mutual friend group, letting the facts speak for themselves. The reaction from our friends was swift and brutal. Once they saw the documented proof of his controlling behavior and the police report, they were completely horrified by his actions. Several friends immediately reached out to apologize for ever taking his side in the past, and within 48 hours, almost everyone in our circle completely severed ties with Mason. 2 days after arriving at my aunt's peaceful home, I received a surprise phone call from a manager at the Goodwill Donation Center. It turned out that a thoughtful employee had set aside a box of personal notebooks and a unique knitted sweater after noticing a name tagged inside. Realizing these sentimental items should never have been dropped off for sale, my aunt drove me back to retrieve the box. And when I held my grandmother's sweater in my hands once again, I burst into tears of pure relief. Mason had tried to strip away my identity, my past and my dignity in a single afternoon, but his cruel attempt at control had completely backfired, leaving him completely isolated, facing legal trouble and drowning in debt. A few weeks later, Mason was forced to break the lease early because he couldn't afford the massive monthly rent payments alone. Without my financial contribution, the property management company penalized his credit score, and he had to move back into his parents' basement while waiting for his mandatory court appearance regarding the property damage claims. Looking back at that devastating night when I walked into an empty room, I realize it was actually the moment I gained my freedom. Sometimes, people try to throw away your value because they can't handle your worth. Standing up for your boundaries might feel terrifying in the moment, but losing a toxic relationship is always a massive win for your future peace.